And I picked something, though, just, in passing, because we're getting into the state of Kenyan politics and all that. And this is just like, a thought-passing article. They're sampled and they're put out there in magazines. And someone said almost every day on the streets of Nairobi, one can't fail to notice, of course, a semi-naked or fully naked mentally ill man or woman. Those are remarks by Brian Maitai. Now, interestingly, many of the city residents find this normal, according to Brian, or even an integral part of urban life.
To walk around the city naked?
Like they say, in every, what they say, in every market, you always find a mad person.
It's true.
So they pretty much find that normal. Now, one can therefore, according to this article, conclude that most Nairobians, and I'm very specific to this article I'm reading, are themselves either emotionally or mentally deranged. I read this, and me living in Nairobi, I thought we normalize quite a number of these things. Yeah, we laugh about it. We say, of course, you can't lock one of these 2-3 people disheartening. People try to find humor around it, but is it really humor?
Well, it's true, because how are you going to diagnose? There's that word, a madman. If you've not seen a similar trait that you may have experienced, one has to think about that. How do you say, okay, this is something? Do you then, do you recognize something?
My question is, you recognize, fine, put it out, trend, okay, but are we more helpful?
Good question.
Are we ever helpful?
Very good question.
Do we intend to be helpful?
Our intentions pure?
Are our intentions pure? That's a big word when it comes to politics as well, does it not? Intentions. What are the intentions? If your intentions are pure, at whatever level, political, educational, community, family, relationships, if your intentions are pure, the likelihood of a positive result then is higher. That segues into our conversation for this hour. From impeachment to protests to everything. Which way, Kenya? And what are we doing today? Our guest for the hour is seated. He's a man you all know. And because, of course, made his stamp in Kenya's politics, but as well as in the National Assembly. Samuel Phogisio is the former ICT minister and former Senate Majority Leader, and he's our guest this hour as we look into how political trust can be restored. Good morning.
Good morning. Hey, it's good to be here.
Karibu Sana, great to have you here. Yeah. We're getting into a number of conversations, but we're going to remind you a couple of things, even as we talk about a healthy political state. There's a need to have a healthy mind and body, isn't it? Titi?
Well, there is. Even if you don't think so, it is important. We are alive and we like to stay alive, but staying alive can be painful. And usually it's because you're unwell. But you don't get unwell in a day. Something happens to your body is visited by alien organisms that then create problems that require you to get medical care. Now, you don't actually need to get there. You can actually figure out what is wrong long before you actually need to be hospitalized, as we say. Yes, long before those WhatsApp messages start flying out that so-and-so is in need of this and the other. There's an organ that has gone left and we need to replace it. That sort of thing.
Yeah.
The Akan University Hospital is saying, please present yourself to any of our outlets. All we require you to have is 9,950 shillings and you will be able to receive a thorough checkup. And that checkup will inform you about the state of your health. And that state of your health and the information therein is what will now enable you to take the steps that will guarantee you continue being healthy and you continue living a healthy life.
Amazing. One time a year, do it. 9,950 at Aga Khan, and you can make sure that everything is hunky-dory as you continue. All right. It's education season. Rather, it's a season where a lot of universities are taking their intake for this particular semester. And you're thinking, okay, so maybe I want to fiddle with the idea of doing education abroad at the university level. Okay. Well, the Cradle Study Abroad World Fair takes place on the 31st of August, 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. Where must you go? The Gallant Mall in Parklands in Nairobi. And many things will be happening on that day. There'll be universities from across the spectrum, from different countries, and you can go there. They are showcasing, and you will also then be able to apply right there on the spot. Somebody's going to walk you through. You can also apply for scholarships. Again, there'll be somebody to walk you through. Visa consultations taking place with visa officers on ground to sort you out, as well as your accommodation information that you would need. It's a study abroad fair. It's the World Fair, www.cradle.com. Get on there, register, because we need you to register before you go for the fair, okay? Because it's invite only, but the way you get your invitation is by registering. So please do that ahead of time, or you can pick up the phone and dial 0799 000 444. There'll be somebody on the other end of the line to help you out. Ça va? Bien. All right. We're getting into a political conversation this hour. Wenshimua, thank you for being here this morning. But we want to welcome you properly. You know how you go places, they welcome you with a cup of tea.
Yes.
A cup of tea is to be found in a proverb.
Right.
This young man goes around to countries around the continent. He's visa free. He can go. And he comes back every week from a particular country. This week we are in Chad. And he'll tell you the day's proverb, and then you can tell us what it means to you. Is that okay?
Yep.
Fantastic.
Okay. Arrogance burnt the chief's compound. That is the proverb.
Very relevant, actually, in Kenya today. So, there's a lot of arrogance in the play in our leadership here, and it just means, you know, you could be a little bit humble and save a situation, and that if you remain arrogant, you could actually destroy yourself and destroy others as well. And in this case, we have had to remove a cabinet. We have had to remove even a governor based on suspicions or claims of arrogance. I mean, arrogance is in Africa actually is the display of opulence and undermining other people. So you find that if you're in a village, you cannot look like you're trying to outlive everybody else. So yeah, so that burns the storehouse.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, yeah, it would actually burn it down.
Yeah.
So we are in an interesting place in Kenya today, where there are very different elements at play at the same time. Like, you know, there was a little over a month of protests, and there's still this bubbling under surface that it's likely that period has not ended completely. And then we see a lot of political affiliations happening. And then we see, like you said, yes, governors impeached, and people saying, it can actually happen. We also want to jump on this bandwagon. What's politically, what would be your overview of what's happening in the country today?
Well, first of all, let me be very clear. I'm very thankful to be here. This is something I follow. I follow you guys every day.
That's great.
And I know the things that go on. I was very privileged to be invited. But we are in a very...
Actually, we are the ones who are privileged to have you. Yes.
We're honored.
Yes,
we are in a very precarious situation, a very unprecedented situation in this country today, politically. We got to the edge, to the brink, a few weeks ago. Remember when people were running under the basement or embankment to escape the Gen Zs. That was really, I think, the lowest point in terms of thinking we are gone as politicians. And there's nothing as big as protecting politicians. You know, what would you do without your parliament and parliamentarians? I'm sure some of you will say, celebrate, let's do it. But
CT, not some CT to your right.
You know,
have a thing or three.
I see now it's become almost an official word to call parliamentarians MPigs.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And if you say MPigs, people tend to know. They know exactly what you're referring to. And yet, today, the things you're discussing about bursaries, about anything, nothing moves without these people. And that's why I think we are in a very unprecedented situation today when they seem to be shaken. They seem to be moved. The confidence around politicians is gone. I saw the other day somebody trying to use his influence on the traffic, and the young man just stayed in his car and refused. I mean, these are the things which were unprecedented.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't expect that to happen. So it's a reality check for Kenyans and for politicians. It's a reality check from the president all the way down. It's not business as usual. And this place, it can be occupied. And the feeling that it can be occupied makes everybody shake. in their boots. And so, so yesterday then became one other thing which is an eye-opener. It can be done, and governors beware. And so the message is going out there saying things is called accountability. That's a very strange word for us, in politics. Accountability to who? Accountable to who? And that's now realistic. That it's possible for the taxpayer.
Yeah.
The guy who sustains you there. And that's, by the way, the reverse of everything. We don't realize that we are being sustained there in our opulence by a poor taxpayer, another taxpayer, somebody who is just paying his taxes. So, yeah, I understand now is that a reality check. And I think some people are getting it. And I think some people just don't get it.
I want to speak on this restoration of, trust and public trust. There is that public vis-a-vis the politicians. But what we saw yesterday during the impeachment of course, Governor Mwangaza was some sort of, remarks being thrown in the Senate from politicians themselves to a sitting Speaker of the Senate. I mean, if I just quote the words of the Nairobi Senator Edwin Sifuna calling Speaker Amason Kingi an embarrassment. Right in the, what the public is watching. I don't know what you'd say as far as instigating this kind of lack of trust from the public is concerned, right from the politicians themselves and in very key houses of, legislation and oversight like Senate and Parliament.
Well, thank you. I speak these days a lot about something I call the trust deficit. It is the missing link in leadership today. There is trust defined as a confident belief in someone is lacking, and to believe that one of the biggest things you can do today is you can be as rich and as enlightened, and one word called trust can bring down a whole organization, can bring down a whole company, a whole government, and when you reach a place of trust deficit to where whatever you do, even if you say it 6 times, people just take it with a pinch of salt. You have lost trust. And what we do, and I belong to something called the Trust Leadership Institute, because since I've been away from Parliament, that's what I've gone into studying leadership, but particularly on trusted leadership, is to understand that once you lose that confidence and belief, and I see a lot of politicians today who speak, and you can speak, shout, seek for some support, and nobody is supporting you. And people are beginning to question you even when you're still there on the rooftops of your cars. And the questioning is, can I trust that guy? A research was done in the US and found out that 50% of workers say they cannot trust their boss to hold $1,000 for them, just keep it for them. This is what has come to leadership now. The question in leadership is, can I trust you? And as I was watching the impeachment yesterday, the question of trust was thrust upon the governor. And especially there was a persistent thing about a letter which was not authenticated and purportedly written by somebody who didn't write it. And so the question came, was this forged? And if it seemed very likely that it was a forged letter, that is a very big issue on trust. And of course, you have seen that even our president today has to go personally every week out on his car to explain the things personally. And that indicates that the message is not getting clear until I say it myself, And yet, as I said, a lot of people have pledged loyalty. They have taken oath as ministers that they're going to be the advisors and they'll be in the president's corner. But it takes the president himself to go out there and actually try and explain himself all the policies. So where is the trust? How much is the trust in Kenya? What is the trust deficit?
Does it matter?
And how do you restore that trust?
Does it matter to I'm talking from a public politician's point of view. You've been one.
I am one.
Still one. Are you?
Yes.
Okay. I'm talking about now sitting in that position. For example, for what we saw yesterday.
Yeah.
Does it matter to politicians that Kenyans trust them?
it doesn't matter, because
It doesn't.
most of the time Kenyans elect the person they don't trust.
Interesting.
And you know, it's because we have so impoverished these Kenyans that as long as you're slightly elevated financially, the trust issue is out of the window. As
So
long
whether
as
these people who elect you don't trust you, do trust you, doesn't matter.
they don't trust you, and if you want to know, as soon as they elect you, they regret the act of electing you.
As soon as you
As soon as they elect you. And so most of the people that you see today are in parliament, and three months after they've been elected, they probably would have been rejected already, because you promise so many things, and immediately you get into that place, you disappear. You don't get. Your people that you promised things with, the people who supported you, lose trust in you immediately. So trust is at the center of our politics, but we ignore trust. And the people are saying, "Can I trust you?" But for now, if you can give me 100 shillings, 200 shillings, I will change my mind and trust you for the election. But in real life, I know you, and I know something called character. Is the most important thing, until to the place where even Kenyans have a law. On chapter 6, they have a law that guides. They have tried to say you must be a man, woman of character, but the voters end up picking the people probably not with the best character, because what we have done in this country, and I think we might begin to think, is how do we train our people to say, can I trust you with my leadership, with my vote?
Exactly, because how do we train the people? And this is the electorate, and it is quite interesting to hear you say, Mheshimiwa, that on one side is the people who are like people they don't trust. In fact, you're saying as soon as we vote them in, we regret it. Is this, on the other side, the same people who are calling out for accountability? I mean, these same people are going to be voting in 2027, but this is a cycle. In fact, we have one of the most expensive elections in this country. We have an aftermath that we also have to heal from. It's a cycle we want to continue with, and not forgetting the voter apathy that we have been witnessing, people going down by the day, probably not coming out to vote. Looks like we are either losing the country, or is there even hope in restoring the hygiene and not continuing to calcate a political culture of lie to me so I can vote you in and regret later? What do you think would be the way forward for the electorate listening this, of course, at this moment?
You see, one of the things, the reasons why not very many people can run for president in this country.
All right.
So you could have the best person, but is unable to run for president because we made it so expensive that if you don't have money, people just pass you by. The same thing with the governor position. Very few people can actually afford to run for governor in this country. And if you look at the budget they talk about, it's just so prohibitive that very few people. And so only those people in that category of moneyed people, the category of the rich, if you can't afford something 100 million, 200 million, 300 million. Some people have spent almost 600, 700 million running for governor in this country. And you wonder what is it what is their interest in monetizing a position. And you wonder why people then complain later that governors have become, corrupt. But if going to that place has cost him that kind of money, how do you expect the person not to try and recoup that money? And how do you recoup that money from salary? You can't recoup it from salary. And so the issues that we are mixing here is that we have a leadership that takes advantage of people who don't understand those kind of monies, who don't understand what they're going to suffer after this person has been elected, until they're in there. And then we have come to a place as politicians where we paint everything that we touch as benevolence from us. Even when the money belongs to you.
So what needs to change? Because essentially what we're doing here is almost as though we're going round and saying that, okay, people who get into elective office have to spend a lot of money in order to get there. Whatever they're doing with the money to get there,
How they get it?
How they get the money,
That's not your
whatever
problem.
they're spending it on, we don't know. But we know that in order for you to get from this point to this point where you've been elected, you're going to need, for Senator, 35 million shillings. Governor, almost 50 million from the numbers that we saw, right? And so it's almost, I shudder to say it, but it's almost justifiable then that when you get into that position, you're going to want to recoup your investments.
It doesn't do.
But we are also saying that you want to, how do you expect them to get the money back? But what has caused this situation whereby we are saying you must spend this amount of money to get into this position? We're almost justifying that whatever means they will use to recoup their money, then it's okay because the system dictates that you must spend that kind of money. And for me, it just sounds so obscurely warped that we have accepted a system that demands you pay that amount of money to get into a position where you are to serve the people.
But consider, you see, you are doing the thing that an honest person does. You're being altruistic. And you're saying politicians go into politics to serve.
It should be, maybe even realist. Maybe even realist.
Yes,
Okay.
but and there are those who do, actually. I have met politicians who genuinely seek to serve and they try their utmost. I've met them.
Do they spend that 35 million shillings?
I wouldn't know how much they spend.
midway?
What I do know is that they represent a breed of individuals in this country who are soon to be extinct. That's what I know. But if you take the view that the people who go into politics now are business people, not politicians. They call themselves politicians because that particular work they're going into is called politics. So they'll brand themselves as such. So the 50 million is an investment. And so they do not mind how much they invest. It's not really a problem because they know exactly how they're going to get a return. If I'm looking at it clinically and I'm saying that seems to be what has become of our politics. It is a business. Somebody spends, call it an investment, and they know full well, not expect, they know and they figured out how it is they're going to. Partly because that money is not necessarily all theirs.
Yeah.
There are people who support them. There are people who invest in their candidature. And when they invest in their candidature, the individuals will also expect a return.
Is that the way it should be? Washima?
I think he's right in the sense that there's a lot of business input into the politics of today. I can just, in retrospect, I think we should have been thinking about those questions as voters. But we never have time to think. We are bombarded with images, messages, and so on. The question we should be asking ourselves as voters is, and we never ask, is where did this money come from? Where did this money come from? And secondly, the people who support by contributing money will expect favors immediately. You become, you get elected, and so you struggle with the balancing act of: do I now serve the people? Do I begin to pay my debts? Do I begin to, and so the process of corruption starts there. The thing that baffles me is that we have seen people in 5 years, become billionaires in 5 years, and nobody's questioning how. What business is this? So we can all go and invest in. Because if you have a good business, you can at least invite us to say, here is an opportunity to invest. How does that happen? And we, before all our eyes, all the eyes, the intelligence eyes, the investigative eyes, the anti-corruption eyes, we've seen these people, we know them, and we don't worry about it. That's the nature of the African, or is it Kenyan? We don't worry about it. We celebrate the person who becomes a billionaire.
And we should worry about it. We should worry about it. I mean, it's almost incensing that we don't. But let's take a break on that point, shall we? Let's take a break at 27 minutes to 10 o'clock. And Mheshimiwa Sam Phogisio is our guest this hour. And we're looking at, from the different things that are happening in the country, how do you restore trust in politicians and the process? It continues after this.
oh guys, you should just be in this space. It feels like I'm in a hotel.
I always want a space to feel inviting, warm, cozy, lived in. I always look at lighting as the jewelry of the house, yeah?
OMG! I want to go away with everything in this house.
When I have back pain, I reach for 2 tablets of Panadol Extra for fast relief of strong pain, like headache, toothache, muscle pain, and I'm released from pain to be there for those who need me. Try Panadol Extra for fast and effective relief from strong pain. New Panadol Extra Soluble dissolves twice as fast versus standard paracetamol tablets.
A woman with big dreams.
I'll soon have enough money to pay for my tuition. I proclaim you as Saint Rita, the patron of all nurses.
A man with family secrets.
Dad, how'd you end up to be a corrupt city engineer? And all of our money!
In a person's life, there's always someone who will totally and completely turn your life around. That woman is my wife.
3 hearts burning with passion.
Don't ever leave me. Never be with anyone else. I'd have to kill that person.
3 hearts burning for love.
Doc Salcedo, Peterson Alvarez. Hi, Doc. Nice to meet you.
Government to buy a car. And I remember that we would come here into the city 3 days in the week, and you have to run back to your constituency.
Right.
You couldn't afford to be in this city as a member of parliament. Then what we did was we started fighting for higher salaries, until now we are, I think, some of the most highly paid things. And the more you became affluent, the more people decided we must have a share of that, and therefore we started now dishing out things for favors, and corruption crept into our politics at that particular time. And so you wanted more money so that you can get to sustain yourself. Know that the turnover of members of parliament is about 70%. So people come in one time and they go. To sustain that, now you needed more and more and more and more. And that thirst has never been quenched. And so wananchi now know that you have money, and you have money, so let's share with this money. I shared the other day about the politicians who go to church or funerals, and they're in a hurry to leave. And this weekend, the pastor said to them, you come late, and then before the funeral is over, you're announcing you want to exit. And when you exit, people follow you. So you actually, why did you come in the first place? It's the same thing with churches. People now follow politicians for money. And so churches have to beg politicians, please don't live in the middle of the service.
Or please don't come.
Would they say please not come?
No, because about Sadaka time is almost there. So you can't say, no, please don't come. So trust, and I just want to say this, there are there are about 8 pillars of trust that people need to know to restore trust. But one of those things which is missing is called clarity. Clarity is how you communicate your objectives, how you communicate your message. And the president of Kenya has said is that a lot of the problem he has was the poor communication of his policies. That clarity is very, very important. And I gave an example of the young man who said to his daughter, "Peleka hii simu weka kwa moto." And the daughter went straight to the kitchen and put it in the fire. Because the meaning of moto, what is that? You know, for him, he interpreted that to go and charge it.
Yeah.
The girl said, this is something for the fire. So communicate clearly. Now, the second one is actually compassion. How do you treat your people? Can you please restore compassion in leadership? Because one of the things that we've done as politicians, we moved so far away from compassion that we just don't care what happens to our people. And that's why begging, following you everywhere, because you have not known how to meet their needs as a compassionate person. Here, you know, and that's a subject for another. Let me not go into the details of it. But the third one is what we talked about, character. Are you consistently who you are? Who are you? And we know each other, by the way, so well. That's why if the moment somebody gets elected in this country, it's, oh no, how did we elect this one? Because we know the character of everybody. We know who is the thief. We know who is this and that and that. We still elect them, but we know. So character is very important. Are you consistent in your character? The other one is competency. Are you really fit for the job? Do you know there are many people who get elected into this country's political system who don't know why they got there? You know, you are there, and then you start asking, but why am I here?
Why am I here?
What am I supposed to do? That includes presidents, by the way. That includes presidents. There are some people who become even president without understanding why they become president. They have just gone through a particular system. There are members of parliament here who the party just says it must be you. And you end up here and you don't exactly know what to do.
Or didn't want it even.
Or even when you probably didn't want it. And so competency is understanding, are you fit for the job? Are you trained for the job? Can you be trained even for that job? Commitment is the other one. Those are 8 C's for me. Commitment, and then of course there's connection and there's contribution, but finally there's something called consistency. Consistency is if you do the same thing the same way, we can know that we can trust you. Can you restore that? People love to see the little things done consistently. If I were to speak on each of these, will take a whole day. We don't have much time.
Right.
But there's an effort to try and restore trust. And that effort is, first of all, you must accept there is a trust deficit here. That is vulnerability. Leaders here don't want to be vulnerable. You have to accept. At some point, I think the president in this country accepted. When the protests were, were
high.
And I think he managed to say, okay, I see things didn't go very well, but can we talk? But the whole idea that we have to do is go into the thing called character and tell us who you really are. We can tell that you are not the right person for this place, but can you change? Can we change anything in this? And so you can restore actually trust. Trust was there from the very beginning. We did not always start, we're not born corrupt. When we started, we had good intentions. But by the time, and I'm not prejudiced, but by the time a member of parliament who is earning a salary can actually buy a chopper or a helicopter and run it, by that time you begin to understand that somehow there's a very lucrative business somewhere that earns the person that kind of money. By the time you double your income in 2 years and you declare your wealth that you have gained
100 million.
I mean, somehow there must be a business somewhere. And so can we track that? Can we trust you with our resources if you are the one going to handle our resources. So I'm thinking that the subject matter for discussion that is not in leadership training is about trust.
I want to bring in and you mentioned the protests. They were out for a reason. Accountability was, at the center of it. But also you spoke on the clarity, communication, transparency reports, and that all boils down to accountability structures, which I know you serving in government would understand, and even holding an office as a CS, that accountability structures are very important. Now, somebody and religious people would say that money is the root of all evil.
The love of money.
The love of money. Okay, City. The love of money. And you've also spoken on money. I mean, you have emphasized on it. And I was looking at when the former CS, was handing over to the now new CS, he brought in a very important thing. Saying,
which ministry?
Ministry of Treasury. Yes, and said Kenya needs to exit I think the grey list.
Yeah.
And then he spoke about it. And this is an issue that even when we pay our taxes, it's always around the taxes. Reject the Finance Bill 2024 was all about finances. And Kenyans are not very confident that when we give this, it works for us. When we put you in power, you work for us. It's all about you're going to take our money, our resources are always going to be stolen. How do we restore this financial trust? And it's not once, twice that Kenyans have demanded for proper audit of, money coming in, money leaving their pockets. This financial issue has become a major headache in this country. It seemingly is. The love of it is becoming the root of all these problems that you're even talking about this morning. How do we, in your opinion, come to a proper place as a country hygienically?
Well, thank you. And money now is very important for every sphere of life. Money. People have created niches for you. I saw the other day that even just to fund the universities, now we've been banded,
Yes.
to 4 bands.
Yeah.
And even the people who belong the first, second, third band don't want to be now identified that way. They're all lining up in the 4th band so that they can get. But the thing is, I think this country has created classes. And there is a small class that has all the money, and there is the rest of us who don't have much money, and so the issues of trust in monies is not understood by most of the electorate, because they celebrate the money you have as though it was their money. They celebrate it as a community, and when you are arrested, the community says, "Don't arrest that thief of ours; it's ours." And so we have a tendency to think community-wise. I mean, look, communally, basically what it is. How to restore. I want to bring the example of yesterday's impeachment. And I watched the whole of it, by the way. I watched that impeachment process, both days, to the end, including the last part of it, where there was, mourning and shouting and like you're saying, bad behavior was there actually. Even if disorder, I've never seen a speaker spend a lot of time saying order, nobody would listen to him. He tried to throw people out of the chamber and nobody would listen to him. Because there is so much interest in this thing called impeachment. On both sides, there is a winner and a loser. But it's beyond just getting Governor Kawira out. Remember, there are many people who are going to go out with her. From employment. There are many families that are actually now mourning, and those supporters, and then there were contractors who were expecting money. There were people who supported this process of impeachment. There were senators who supported this process of impeachment, and now it was coming to a head, and the situation was becoming very difficult. But I looked at it and said, we made money the center of our politics. And when now you are getting out, you're causing a lot of people to just fail you because you do not have that kind of money. I grew up in a place where initially there was no expenditure, too much expenditure money, because the Pokot people that I represented, Kachaliba constituency, the biggest thing for them was trust. Can we trust you with our lives?
Right.
With our security? Can we trust you with this and that? And when we brought the issue of people came in now to campaign later with money, lots of money. Those of us who didn't have much money survived, and that's how we survived for long, because we served our people. I grew up in a place where I studied something called servant leadership. I taught at Daystar University, and we used to teach servant leadership. And what that means, and that's missing in politics today, is that you're actually a leader. You actually got authority. But now you are facilitating other people. You are serving other people to be better. And that's what servant leadership is about. I wish people would understand that. And I heard the president the other day speak about it. Service was intended in leadership. Now, worship has replaced service. And why is it that when the president goes everywhere, we must all drive there, follow?
I like the word you used, worship.
Yeah.
But is the worship of what exactly? Because even the servant leadership is a biblical terminology.
Right.
It's with reference to what Jesus said. That those of you who would be leaders, who would be first, must. It's servant leadership. But then there's also, when you're talking about biblical terms, you're talking about gods. There's the worship of false gods. Because when someone puts themselves on a pedestal, they become a god, a small g, yes, but they become some sort of a god. Now, I was looking and I've been reading about your track record, and I've looked at the things that you have done. Yes, indeed, the change came about when you could no longer represent your constituency, Kachiliba. Money became a central focus of the election. Now, not just money, a lot of money. Now, the business element that I mentioned, if you look at our political parties, in my mind are all, let me underline it and circle it in red and green, all our political parties are business entities. And businesses are transacted. Businesses are transacted when it is you wish to get a nomination for that party to actually vie for a seat, business contract, because money is involved.
Yes.
And throughout. And everyone knows this. Every time we have this discussion, and why I began the way I have is, we talk about the public being ignorant. Actually, I am of a contrary view. The real ignorance is with those who aspire for political leadership and achieve it. Why do I say this? If you look at what politicians in theory are supposed to do, is they're supposed to handle the scarcity issue. Why do I mean scarcity? A lot of the discussions about resources and how they're divvied out. Now, how is it that people who, by and large in this country, are educated, fairly well educated, don't understand that if there is plenty for everybody, then everybody gets some. Not necessarily plenty. But when you look at the manner in which our politicians go about their business, they reduce the whole, so it becomes very little. So even those who could have gotten some, not a lot, now get nothing. So you then destabilize the entire ecosystem out of your ignorance. Because how can you, who is supposed to be a protector of public resources, make it your business that the business you do is to ensure that money that the citizens collect in terms of their resources is the focal point of what you call your business?
How is that?
How can that possibly be somebody who we can then say is somebody who understands, when the very thing that would protect them is the very thing they work against?
Can that be present, be trusted, Mheshimiwa?
And even as you answer, because I want to add to what Siti has said, is it that they're ignorant or is it intentional? For sociologists who follow how power plays out, there's the creation of subordination and need. I mean, where are we at?
And I think that way of looking at it is a fresh breath of, a fresh air. The reason I say that is I think we have identified, if we take the example of CDF money, for example, in a constituency, it's really meant to go to the people entirely. But the leadership creates a situation where scarcity so that people follow you for scholarship. They come to your home, they follow you for whatever the scarcities are there, and now you are able to, quote unquote, supply from their own pot of resources.